Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here at our little Printboy lady roundtable. We're just going to go around really quick and introduce ourselves. My name is Sarah Ray. My pronouns are she, hers. My sexual orientation is up in the air. We could call it bisexual. We could call it pansexual. You know, I don't discriminate. Aziza, why don't you go next?
Hello, my name is Aziza. Pronouns are she, her, and I identify as pansexual, bisexual. I don't really discriminate either.
Love it. Darling, would you like to go first?
I'll take it away. I am Katie. My pronouns are she, her. I'm also open to using they, them pronouns. And I identify as queer. I feel like that encompasses a little bit of everything that I feel resonates with me, because it is such a spectrum. Just use kind of a run-of-the-mill word that feels like it fits my identity. But if we want to get specific, I think, yeah, bisexual, pansexual, but really I just attracted to humans.
Love that.
Yeah.
My name is Melissa, but lately I've been going by Mel, which I kind of love. And my pronouns are she, her, they, them. I basically see it as I would love to be integrated more for people to call me they, but I'm not going to be like offended or feel like I'm not, you know, also she. But I do think that non-binary is kind of where I've been falling for a while. And like, now that I have the words to go with it, I'm like, okay, yeah, like that feels right. So, you know, take that with a grain of salt. And then my like sexuality is just sexual. So I guess I would say queer. And I okayed it with everyone in this room, but the audience should know I had this realization after our first table that I have had sex with every single person on this panel. So
cheers to that.
Love that. If that's not gay rights, I don't know what is.
If that doesn't say anything about the queer community.
Yeah, I don't know what does. So here we are.
I love it. I love it. Well, yeah, obviously we're here to talk about sex today.
Yes.
To kick it off a little bit, I just, by raise of hands, am curious. How many of us have slept with cis male? Okay. And how many of us have slept with a cis woman? All right, nice. And then how many of us have slept with someone identifying otherwise? Okay, all right. Well, I think
there.
That's okay. It's never too late.
Exactly.
Right.
Okay, awesome. So one of the first things that I was kind of thinking about when I was thinking about doing this like sex roundtable thing is the difference between having sex with a cis male and a cis female. Because I am in my first ever female relationship. And so it's been really interesting, like, you know, being with a partner who identifies as a woman, who, you know, was born assigned at birth, a woman, and kind of the differences of sleeping with her regularly versus sleeping with a person who was assigned male at birth and identifies as male. And so I know personally, I've kind of discovered that the women in my life tend to be a lot more sexual than men, which I think is so much the opposite of what we're taught. You know, we're kind of taught that like men have this like crazy sex drive, and that you know, that sex is very much driven towards men and for men, and you know, that there's not a lot that women get out of it. And I feel like the older I get, the more I'm like, that is not the case. I think the high libidos are coming from our ladies, and honestly just the kind of indulging in sex in general really comes from women. And so I was curious if you guys had similar or different experiences to that. Melissa, I feel like you've got some thoughts.
Yeah, I definitely just think, I don't know, I only started sleeping with men more later in my journey. And there's just, I don't know if it's like society has like deemed over passionate to me and like, oh, like I've caught feels for this person, or like, you know what I mean? So for men, I feel like there's a lot of structure or holding back, or you can just tell that they're really focusing on like the performance aspect. Whereas for women, I've just noticed a more like comfortability with not only their bodies, but with other female anatomy or with other, you know, female presenting people. So it's like very interesting to me that it's like portrayed in such a way that in my experience has not been the case. And I also find it really interesting, like the type of women that these specific men are going for is not necessarily what we're seeing portrayed in media as well. So I don't know if that answered your question, like the question, but
yeah, no, I think so. Yeah.
I think it did.
Cool.
But I don't know that I agree entirely. I feel like women have always been very sexual. It just was taboo to say otherwise, you know? I think that, you know, in a lot of male-female relationships where they were born male and born female, I feel like, you know, there still is a lot of patriarchal ideas that are surrounding that kind of relationship. And I think that within, you know, the patriarchal idea, the man is in charge. They're in like that head of the house position, which means, you know, their needs are more important than anyone else's. So I think that was going on for a really long time. And, you know, we're moving away from that now. I mean, women just got the right to vote like nearly 100 years ago, you know? So it's really recent that we've been able to be like our own individuals, and even more recent that we've been able to be like, yeah, I like to fuck. It's fun. Like I enjoy it.
Yeah, totally. Fun fact, actually, I won't get too, you know, detail on this, but in like the Italian Renaissance, the female gaze was considered like totally taboo because a woman just making eye contact with the man could seduce him. And so even in paintings,
that's true though.
Yeah, the paintings
You could
from the
definitely
Italian, yeah, the paintings from the Italian Renaissance, when you see the like busts of men and women, you'll notice the man looks like eye contact with the painter, whereas the woman is slightly off because she was so powerful in her seduction that even a painting of her could seduce the viewer. So they never let her make eye contact. So Katie, you're absolutely right.
That's the power of pussy.
That's the power of pussy, and that's a baddie right there. She was a baddie.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, Aziza?
Well, I remember being in college thinking, why did all these movies and TV shows tell us that men were so sex driven? I was like, that has not been my experience. And I kind of wish I had like slept with more people in college. I didn't, but I wish I did. But even from the people I did, I was like, what I'm seeing is not what I'm experiencing. And so I remember very vividly realizing that. I was like, oh, okay. So if that's not true, like it's free game for all. Like let's all slut it up out here.
Hey.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. So other than obviously like the anatomy of men versus women, what's something like in the bedroom that you guys have noticed is really different between the two? You know, like I hate to polarize it so much because I do believe, you know, obviously it's so much of a spectrum that just, you know, because we could talk about this all day long and about different identities and stuff. I think just for the sake of this, you know, just kind of like the two polar opposites. Like what are some things in the bedroom that are like strikingly different for you guys? Is there anything anybody can think of?
Yeah, I have a couple things. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, the first thing that I've always felt was different in my relationships with women in contrast to my relationships with men, even my relationships with trans individuals who identify as a man, is that, you know, usually people who were born female, there is a different level of intimacy. And I don't know why, but I just feel like in my relationships with women, there's a much more intense intimacy than there is when I've slept with men. You know, when I've slept with men, just like logistically, like makeout times were shorter, foreplay wasn't really, happening. Whereas when I've slept with women, I've fucked a woman like 5 hours straight, and like 3 hours of that was just like learning each other's body. I think like there's just this level of intimacy that you don't get with male-female relationships.
Yeah. The first word that popped into my head was communication. I feel like, and again, my experience is definitely swayed, like in terms of the numbers game, but almost every single female or female identifying person that I've had the pleasure of being with has been able to at some point or another express what they wanted from me as a partner. Like if this was good, if this wasn't good, pressure, tempo, whatever it may be, wasn't afraid to like say, oh, actually, can you do this? Whereas for men, I've never really had them say anything or really even care to know what's going on. Like I've had to be like, excuse me, no, not like that. Like, and I feel like they were like, oh, I'm like, yeah, you don't just get to finish doing what feels good for you. Like there has to be a communication and like, just like, let me know what you're doing. Let me feel like I'm a part of it. And I think that's what grows the intimacy is the communication. I mean, it's the same, not just in sex, but in relationships. Like it's all about power and it's about the transitioning of power, like giving and taking and receiving. And the best way you can do that is by communicating clearly, like what you want. And when that changes, like, it's not just going to be one thing the whole time. Like, that's why different positions were invented and different techniques were invented so that you get to go on a journey. But in order for you to get to the same destination or close to it, then you need to kind of be communicating. So,
yeah.
My thoughts.
I think funny enough to note, kind of on both of your guys' points is that like, I have found that my relationships with women sexually, I am so much more willing to communicate things I'd like to try, things I'd like to do, not to be too crude, but we are talking about sex here, so maybe let's get a little crude. I said to my girlfriend recently, I was like, wow, the way I just like want to devour your entire body. Like I was like, I've eaten ass before. I've only eaten male ass, but and purely because I was requested to do so, and I, happily obliged.
Sure.
But for the first time in my life, I'm like, I have to eat this woman's ass, or I might die. Right. And like, if I had felt that about like my ex-boyfriend, oh God, I would never even say it to him because I know that it would be met with like, oh, what, or like, that's weird, or like whatever. And it's just so funny how I'm so comfortable being like, oh, I will put your feet in my mouth, whatever you want.
Or I want to climb inside your body with you because like this isn't close enough. Like I want to be inside.
We always say that we want to be under each other's skin. And like I could never express those sort of feelings with men. Not that I didn't feel those things, but it's definitely amplified 100%. When it's being met with the same sentiments from a woman who feels comfortable enough to express those things. So I totally agree with both of your points, is that a lot of it is communication and intimacy and all that jazz.
I echo everyone's sentiments, and I do want to preface my next point by saying that I've had this conversation with my own friends, that I feel I've been very fortunate with my male partners. They've always been very considerate, fairly communicative, I feel overall very happy about my male partners. But even with my previous female partners, it was still the communication and the willingness to try so many more things. And since we're being crude, like, okay, like we don't have to stick to penetration. There's lots more things that we can do. And so, which comes with, that communication, but also like that openness and that willingness to be able to explore, especially if you're like, if it's your first time or if you're new partners. So I definitely agree with everyone. It's the communication.
Yeah, totally.
I never felt like I really got that level of vulnerability from men, like cis men, especially. Like, I really just don't feel like I ever felt like I could tell them my needs. And I don't know if that is like, something that I struggle with, but it doesn't sound like it. Cause I think it's really interesting that you said that, Sarah, cause I was like, yeah, no, I don't feel comfortable telling guys like, no, no, no. And I think it's because it's like, sometimes men can take that so personally, like they take it to their like character, their ego, whereas women are like, oh yeah, like they're so much more open to feedback that I found like in a sexual setting.
Yeah, totally. And, you know, like Aziza says, not to knock, you know, the men that I've slept with.
Right. This isn't
I've been very lucky that like the people I've slept with have been amazing, and that I've gotten to try some things that I never thought I would. Like I said, I've eaten male ass. I've pegged a man, you know, like
my dream.
I've
on my list.
Yeah. Like I've lifted men. I've, you know, thrown them around. I've, you know, I've gotten to like, you know, play and like really experience sexuality in a really great way. And I do have to admit, I think I attribute my willingness to be so comfortable with a woman because I, you know, don't feel as comfortable with a man, yet I've been able to get to those places. And so with a woman, the fact that I feel like I can be even more open and intimate with her and, you know, with them, that like, that I'm able to express a deeper thing. And like, I think that it's so fascinating and it's really exciting. And I know that like, I personally hope that like our male counterparts can, you know, express themselves as freely as like, you know, we can with other women and things like that. But I'm gonna kind of branch into something else that also has come up in my life recently that I'm a little curious about. So the conversation of period sex came up recently.
Oh my God, that's so weird. I'm sorry. It's just that we're both on our period and I was like, so I still want you to fuck me tonight. Are you down? Literally was a conversation we had like 2 hours ago. So just had to be like, we're on the same wavelength. That's awesome.
Yeah, love that. So yeah, so I've had period sex before with a man, and it was only with one partner in particular who was like a long time, you know, fuck buddy of mine who I felt very comfortable with. And he was the one who like had posed it, you know, being like, oh, I don't have a problem with it. And I was like, cool. But, you know, with other male partners, I was always like, oh, sorry, I'm on my period. And they'd always be like, oh yeah, okay. Like it was an automatic, like, great, which like to some degree, like, thank you for respecting me, but also
you're not even gonna
respect me a little bit.
Right, you're not even gonna question it. You're not gonna try to fight it at all. Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so I had this conversation with my girlfriend a couple of days ago because, you know, we have a trip coming up soon and we were like talking about like our periods and things like that. And I was like, yeah, well, I won't be on mine, but if I am, like, whatever. And it kind of opened up a conversation where she was like, oh, no, we're not doing period sex. And I was like, what? Excuse me. And she was like, you don't want to be down in my business. And I was like, yes, I do. And she was like, no. And I was like, literally, I told you I would eat your ass, that I would like to. So yes, I would like to have period
Nothing
sex.
Is off limits.
Yeah. And so then we kind of were discussing it a little bit more, and like, you know, other friends of mine were recently having period sex, and, you know, so I was just curious what everybody's opinion on it is, because like I don't have a problem with it personally. I know the first time I had sex with my girlfriend, I was on my period, so I ended up just putting a strap on over my pants because I was like, you know, maybe for the first time, let's keep it a little cleaner. But, you know, now I've gotten to a point where I'm like, no, it better happen. But so it sounds like all of you guys are also pro period sex.
I am pro period sex.
I am not.
I'm super horny on my period. Like, what am I supposed to do about it? Like, it's almost like extra. So I'm like, sorry, but
I am and
I have
not.
needs.
Like,
I feel like you're on the fence about it, but maybe after tonight she'll be converted.
what? This bitch. I feel like it depends on the mood and who it's with. So I've been in situations like, you know, where people have tried to hook up with me, like a one night stand, where I've been on my period. To them, I've always been like, no, you know, that's not something I'm interested in, just because to me it's like, you know, like, yeah, that's a moment. Like, this is something. I don't know why I feel that way, but I'm like, oh, I don't know. Like, you know, like you said, like your partner said, like, you don't want to be in my business like that. Like, no. And I don't know you like that. Like, But obviously with my partner of many years, like, yeah, that's different, you know, but as far as like period sex, I definitely am less into penetration sex
Interesting.
when someone's on their period, either whether it's like giving or receiving.
I don't care. I
She's
like
at the cinema.
penetration. I'm sorry. I'm just listening. I'm making sure I don't talk over you. So keep speaking, and then I'll say my piece.
Buckle in, kids. Yeah, I mean, I just feel like when it has to do with penetration, like there's so many ways to have sex. Like we were saying, like why have penetration period sex when we can still like have a grand old time without it being like a massacre scene or having to do my whites in bleach.
Our sheets aren't white. They are like tan. Anyway.
It was a figure of speech.
I like penetration because when you orgasm and your inner vaginal walls clench, that alleviates cramps. Like I've literally sometimes masturbated just so that I could come, so that my cramps would go away. Like I was like, I can't take this pain anymore. Like I get really bad cramps. So actually not this time around, which has been great, but also maybe I'm just like used to pain now. I don't know. I'm just kidding. That was dark. But yeah, no, I think penetration is like necessary. Also, you kind of stop bleeding when you're menstruating, like, and you're having sex. It's like when you go in the pool and shit. And so to me, it's like not that big of a deal. Like, I think it's more important to shower before if you're on your period, just because like stuff is stuff. And I'd rather it be like fresh, if that makes sense. So, that's the only preference I have. It's like maybe not like if you've like gone on a 6-mile run and you've been wearing your tampon for like 2 hours, like it's like, okay, let's like try to
I'm scared.
set the scale. You know what I mean? Like it's just common courtesy. Like if your partner had explosive diarrhea, you're not like, let me eat that ass. Like you're gonna be like, after you shower. I'm just saying there are like rules that just are like a given. I think
That's
if
true.
you have like good, my dad's calling right now. Yeah, common courtesy. That's it though.
It's
like
true.
menstruating in itself isn't disgusting. It's like it's good for
I mean,
your
I
iron.
used to say when I was in middle school that I was always like, I never suck penises, never. And I used to say the only way I'd suck a dick is if I had Clorox wipes and I cleaned it before. And I was like very adamant. Now, obviously, like I'm not putting Clorox wipes on someone's dick, but it's just like the fact is like we need to deep clean that shit before I'm like all over that. That's my mouth.
Yes, we saw.
Oh, that's so funny.
They need to be clean, and I just feel like periods are dirty.
Well, in a way, it's you shedding the inner lining, but your lining isn't necessarily dirty. It's just earthy, right?
Dr. Mel over here.
I know a lot about
your
vagina.
walls contract.
I think that's all bullshit.
Oh, really?
It out your
Look
ass.
it up.
Actually, it's true. Yeah, no,
It's earthy. Have you
she's
ever
right.
tasted it?
Oh, well,
What?
I don't know about the earthy thing, but
We're gonna
Well,
close that.
earthy was to describe the taste. I thought you meant the vibe of what was happening.
Oh,
Okay.
that too.
Okay.
What about you, Aziza? Period sex? Yes, no?
Not penetrative.
Okay.
I've never had period sex with a woman. I guess I'm not opposed. I haven't had the opportunity to try, but my current partner is male and he's all for it. We've had period sex a long time ago, but it was very painful for me because I get very painful periods myself. So for me, I'm like, no. I also don't feel very good when I'm on my period. So that's it for me. But I like I said earlier, like there's way more than just penetration. So I'm open to other things, but penetrative, no, it looks like the film set of Carrie in there. Like
Right.
it's too much. It's too much. So
My poor roommate just got home and he's going to hear the rest of this conversation.
Ayo.
So
Good for
hope
him.
you're ready, Javi.
It's educational.
Okay, so sorry, what was that, Katie?
I said he can learn a thing or two.
Yes, this is true. Okay, let's veer the conversation over to toys. Favorites, anybody? Are you pro? Are you anti?
Definitely pro. take help where you can get it. Sometimes you're tired, sometimes you're lazy, but that doesn't mean you don't want to get off. I'm a big fan of vibrators. I love the vibrators. We have like a We Vibe that we got when we were doing long distance. We both got one. You can like control it.
Oh, my girlfriend and I want one of those.
Yeah, yeah. And so like it looks like this. So this part goes inside and then it like gets on top. So you can get clit stimulation while inside. And then we also have one of those Theraguns. So sometimes we use the Theragun. It's nice. It's a good, like, you love the Theragun, bitch. You're like, and I'm like, yeah, sure.
That shit puts me in my place.
Yeah, it kind of hurts me. It's like very like poundy. I'm like, ow, my pelvic wall, as Dr. Mel would say.
Sometimes you're just trying to get your back thrown the fuck out, you know? So get the gun in there.
She's drinking 14% wine, so just get ready for more.
I
of
also
that.
don't drink.
I'm like looking at the bottle, like, oh, this is gonna get interesting.
Also, if we're gonna talk about how much I love the gun, then I'm gonna tell you why.
Yeah, so
Good.
we
should get proceeds for this.
Yeah, I really want to try this one vibrator that looks like a tongue. And it like flicks like this. And then I've also really been interested to try the suction ones out, but I'm kind of scared.
I have one and I bought it on accident. It scares me. I don't like it. Sometimes because it's a double. And like I'll have the other one on and then the suction one will come on and I'll be like, oh,
I'm like scared it's gonna like be too much for my little clit.
Yeah, it's I don't like it personally. I'm sure some people love it, but not for me.
Also strap-ons. Great. Amazing. Super, like for me, I like have a really active imagination. So I literally feel like it's a phantom limb, like that I have feeling. I've come from strapping before without any other like things touching me. I love it. I love getting my strap on sucked. That's really fun. I'm super pro like all the toys pretty much. And now I'll let other people talk. Sorry.
Aziza, thoughts?
I'm pro toys. I think that they're fun way to spice things up. I don't use them too frequently with a partner or by myself, but like I'll occasionally bring them in a non-sober state. Recently, I bought 2 toys, that little rose one.
Love it.
Very cute, very small. Used it for a second, it was very powerful. Had to turn that off. It was a wee bit much, but it was nice. Then another one, like a suctional one, and that one is also scary to me. I was not sober when I bought it. Otherwise, I would not.
I love a good drunken sex toy purchase.
I told my friend, and she was like, "You bought them?" And I was like, "Yeah, I don't remember, but I did it." But I'm
definitely showed up at my door.
Right. I got the alert and I opened the box. I was like, oh, I did it. I did that. Okay. But I'm pro toys. I don't use them too often myself, but I think that they're a great addition to the bedroom.
Agreed. Fun fact, actually. So this is, gonna bring Mel into this. When we were in college, I don't know if you remember this, my first experience ever, not like my experience, my first like experience with like anybody even discussing toys like in a real way, like, I'm sure it was like joked about and like whatever as like, teenagers do. But there was a group of us who all went to Walgreens, and Mel and her girlfriend at the time purchased like little finger vibrators or something, and it was like labeled as a personal vibrator, but it was like for massages or something. And I remember you buying it and me being like, oh, I never thought about that before. Like I like just had never.
Why was I doing that? We had dildos, and I was like, "Oh, let's get the CVS $10 cheap ass finger guns." Why not? It's classic 18-year-old shit right there.
Yeah, but I don't know why every once in a while that'll pop in my head. I'll be like, oh yeah, and like I feel like it was like brightly colored. I think every finger was a different color.
They're always brightly colored. I feel like
they're like neon green or some shit. I remember that. They weren't very good. I never bought off-brand sex toys again after that. I think. I was like, that's just a UTI waiting to happen, I feel like.
Totally.
Quality, yes. So that's something for our viewers. Quality is very important. go to the sex shop, talk to the workers, ask what they have been seeing being purchased a lot. And most of the time they'll be like, oh my God, this is amazing. Or I'm saving up my next paycheck for this. Like they're the ones who are, they're super into talking about it.
They
You work at a
know.
sex shop. It's not like they're like shy. Like that's just not work. So I think that's where I've learned a lot about just kind of quality and
also like the lube you use, the cleaner you use. Sensitive. I'm very sensitive. So for a while, I didn't really like toys. And I was like, no, you know, just because, again, my body was sensitive. I didn't find what was working for me, or cleaner had something in it that would give me just weird reactions. So I couldn't use toys for a while, but once I got around that, it was amazing. And now, honestly,
what a journey.
Yeah, it was a real journey.
Now she's
And I just want to say the reason that is because I'm on SSRI, so that's a whole other conversation.
So she needs a pounding
of feeling like sometimes it's like I love sex, I love my sex life, I love my sexuality, but
your sex partner.
I love my partner, but also like those SSRIs, that mental health medication, be turning off your libido, and so I need that pounding, otherwise I won't feel it.
It's sad.
Yeah, totally.
But I'd rather have her be happy. You know what I mean? It's like a sacrifice that we have had to like have serious conversations about. Cause again, I'm a sexual being, as we all know, we have the receipts. So for a while that was like, you know, something that we struggled with, and trying to find a way to make it not like a resentful thing. And that we both were going to have to kind of work in a way that we had not experienced before. Cause like, that's part of getting older too. Like libidos change, you get more stressed out, we're working more, like shit is just not as fiery and fresh all the time. Like you have to work for it. And again, that's why I'm so grateful to be in a relationship with someone that's constantly communicating about where they're at and how they're feeling. And so that we kind of are never like left in the dark about why things are happening or not happening as much. It's like, okay, like this is what's going on, so that we don't take it personally, which I feel like it, you know, in some ways, like to kind of circle back to men and their sexuality, like a lot of times men use that excuse, well, I need to come, so, you know, this isn't going to work. And it's like, okay, but sometimes you have to make sacrifices. So, you know?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I agree. Yeah. And it's all about like finding what works for you and your partner and, you know, whatnot. Cause like, I know that like with certain partners I've had, like there's things that I would and have done with them that I would never do with other partners, just because it's just not the same vibe, you know? 100%. Yeah, totally. So I think you're right. It's a lot about communication, especially when you're bringing props into the mix too, you know, because I think that like, you know, sometimes, you know, I think it was anybody, but I think sometimes with men in, you know, female male relationships, sometimes men don't understand that like something else needs to be brought into the mix to, you know, help everybody get there. And, you know, I think that is a blow to some people's egos when it doesn't need to be. And, you know, like, I mean, my girlfriend and I are long distance. And so that's, you know, a big part of our relationship right now is that, or, you know, like we call it going acoustic. You know,
I love that.
Yeah. Or like I refer to, you know, her like wand as her friend. Like, I'm like, oh, is your friend joining us this evening, or are we going acoustic? You know, so,
I love it.
Yeah. And like, you know, there's been other partners that I've had that like, you know, just not the same kind of communication. It wouldn't be as fun and flirty as it is with her. So yeah. So I totally agree.
That's awesome.
But what's the kinkiest thing you guys have ever done?
I don't know.
I mean, like, define kinky. Like, what are we talking about?
Well, that's up to you. That's the thing, is like, you know, that's really
an open book there.
I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of room for like more. But I think, I don't know. I don't really know what the kinkiest thing we've ever done. I've done some crazy shit like while we were together, but like, you know what I mean? I don't know. I'm like thinking of one specific time, but I don't really know if that's like kinky or just like.
Your mom's calling you.
What the fuck? Why are my parents calling me?
I have an answer.
Okay,
I will say the kinkiest thing that I've done recently is I fucked Melissa with my big toe. And
Nice.
Oh my God, are you serious?
you brought out the gun, bitch. We are open terrain here.
I don't like feet. So this is why this is like.
This is why it's really kinky for us. 'Cause
Yes.
I'm not a foot person either.
I do not like
I'm
feet.
not a foot person.
I think they're pretty gross. Like
They're
I'm just
nasty.
not down. Like footsies,
Mm-mm.
it's not necessary. There are other
Mm-mm.
things to be like played and cuddled with. Anyway, we were on the couch and she had her legs, you know.
Let's just give you a rundown. It
Well,
happened.
yeah. Basically, she just started fucking around. I was like, you better be careful because you're turning me on. And then we were just like, let's just continue. And then it happened. And then she was like laughing. And I was like, fuck, you're never going to let me live that down ever.
It's so funny.
So I guess that is the kinkiest thing,
It's so
probably.
funny because it's such, I think to us, it's so kinky because we are not into that, you know, like most things are free game. We fucked in a stranger's bed. We fucked in her parents' kitchen. I hope
yeah,
they don't
we
watch
fucked
this.
On the countertop
We
an
fucked in
hour
our
before
kitchen.
this.
Yeah, we just fucked in our kitchen.
Yeah.
So I mean, we're pretty open and down for things, but as far as foot stuff, absolutely not.
That's not like a thing that's going to be added to the menu anytime soon. But I guess I really love her if her feet, you know.
To
are
each his own,
yeah.
baby. To each his own.
Also, if you're horny enough, any pressure is good pressure. So, you know what I mean?
Not everyone consent.
That's
is
well,
key.
yes, I did consent.
Yeah, you did
I
consent.
could have easily kicked you away. Oh my God.
Aziza.
What about you, Sarah?
Let's open it
I
up. 'Cause
wanna
I know
hear,
Sarah's
Sarah.
got some stories.
Aziza, I know y'all got some
Yeah.
stories.
I will say, I'm not gonna talk about anything that's done in the bedroom per se, because personally, I don't think I'm that kinky. But I actually did used to be a dominatrix, and
That's
so
right.
those were some very interesting times. I only had male clients, and I will just say that they asked for some very interesting things, especially when you get into like the financial dominatrix side.
Oh.
There's some
Mhm.
very interesting things out there that are
That's definitely on a bucket list.
That's a
for me.
position I would
Oh.
like to be in.
that are being I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it. Being my current profession now, it wouldn't be a good idea. But
One day we can have our
Miseducator.
cake and eat
right,
it
but
too.
after I
One day.
retire, perhaps maybe I'll get back into it. But I will say, just like being in the BDSM community, it's a fun, kinky time. So I'll just leave it at that.
I love it. Keep
I
us
love it.
wanting
Yeah,
more.
we
That's
want more.
classic Aziza. Okay, Sarah, what are you willing to kind of lightly?
Oh, I could go all day.
I
But I
know.
will say something new for me right now. I do have a pet who I am calling Kitty. He doesn't like that name, but that's okay. I
He's your
picked it.
pet. Mhm.
He's my pet dog, named Kitty. And yeah, I just, I don't think there's much more that needs to be said with that other than I have a pet.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah,
I
thank
remember
you.
my first experience with the pet community was at a pride, and I was just a young baby gay and just completely just like the whole BDSM community just smacked me across the face, and I had like stars in my eyes. I was like, yes, we
Yeah.
love it.
Also, it's not
Yeah.
like kinky, but one of my go-to like outfits when I go to festivals or go out is my harness. So
We
most
love.
people have seen me in that, and it's like definitely a great conversation starter. And what's funny is that it's usually women that are coming up to me and going, oh my God, I'm obsessed with your harness. Because again, I feel like it's not as like celebrated or shown, or like maybe people just don't feel confident enough. And if I can change one person's outlook on that, like fucking do it. It's so fun and liberating,
Yeah.
and it looks badass. Leather is amazing. I'm a fan. So I hope that this inspires someone to wear it to their next club or pride festival or anything like that, because I'm super into that. Yeah. I feel like it's
too, like that community, it's so taboo.
yeah,
know,
it's like
all of it.
dominated by gay men, and
Yeah,
you know.
or not even that, but like they say, oh, like if you're participating in said kink, you know, then you must have or present like this kind of
Right.
issues. Like, oh, you have mommy issues, you have daddy issues, where sometimes it's like, no, that's not true. Like, you don't get to just define my mental state. Like, I'm just down, you know?
Yeah.
I just like this.
Yeah.
Totally. I mean, everything's all good and fun as long as no one's, you know, getting hurt without consent.
Exactly. Sometimes they want that.
How many times can you like underline that? Like,
Yes,
consent.
consent is the only way that any of this is possible.
Agreed. Agreed. Any parting notes as we wrap this?
I actually
up?
do have a parting note, and I think that note would just be that, shoot, I lost my train of thought. So actually give me a second. Let me reframe.
You're so cute. I would just say, don't be afraid to try things, to communicate, to let yourself go through different phases, because it's going to change. Like, you know what I mean? Sometimes I want long hair. Sometimes I want short hair. Sometimes I'm more femme. Sometimes I'm more mask. Like, don't be afraid of like going through those feelings and like feeling like your sexuality has to look or sound or act like one thing. Like, it's the spectrum, and everything should kind of feel open, and you know, you just enjoy it. Everybody has something new to offer. So I also think that like numbers in terms of like sex shouldn't be as taboo. It's like, to me, sex can be something that is an energy exchange that doesn't necessarily have to be a commitment or a promise, but it can be a fun, beautiful, passionate moment. And as long as that's like communicated and again consented with the other individuals, like, do it all, baby. Try all the flavors. So that's what I would say.
Absolutely. I remembered what I was going to say. I was going to say, based off of what both you said, Sarah and Aziza, you mentioned, Aziza, that you were previously, you know, dominatrix, and Sarah, you mentioned that you had a pet, and that made me think of like the whole argument in queer relationships of like top bottom, like I'm verse, like yada yada yada. And I know that's a whole other chapter of sex.
Yeah, we'll have to make that
community. That'll have to be its own.
I actually have a note for us to have a whole conversation on just that another day.
We have to, because I realized we're coming to the end of it.
Yeah.
We haven't even brought it up, and I'm like, oh my God, I have so much to
And
say.
Yeah, it was
like,
in my notes, but I was like, this is a bigger conversation.
It is.
Yes.
Yeah.
It so is. And, you know, just to touch on it a little bit, like, I just think the idea, queer relationships kind of bend those rules, whereas every like man woman relationship I've been in, every relationship I've been in with a cis man, like I've really felt like I've always kind of had to be a bottom as like a femme presenting individual. So I think my parting notes would be just like, do whatever you want, ride the wave of the openness and the individuality. Like, I feel like if there's any time to explore sexuality, if there's any time to try different things on, to try different positions or toys, or, you know, positions of power or characters,
Yeah.
whatever it may be, like, do it, because I think it's just such a special thing that we get to be alive in a world where this is openly discussed. Obviously, we have a lot of progress to continue to make and a lot of things to continue to, you know, grow in. But I do think it's so cool that we have this openness to do these things. So if our conversation has shown you anything, if you know, if 3 people who've all slept with the same person can sit down and have a fun conversation about sex and intimacy, then God damn, you can do anything. So try it. Why not? If you're interested, try it out.
You're cracking me up.
My parting words would be safe. We didn't really talk about safety.
Oh my gosh.
Please be safe. Leave your egos at the door, leave your preconceived notions at the door, and enjoy yourself. If you're not enjoying yourself,
There's no point.
What's the point of having sex? I mean, it's for enjoyment. So those would be my parting words.
Good sex, long life.
Yes, I echo all of it. And I just want to say thank you again, you guys, for meeting up with me and doing this. I hope there's many more of these where we'll get a little bit more detailed on some things, get a little looser maybe.
love
But I
it.
really appreciate your guys' time. This has been a blast.
Yeah, thank you,
Love you
Sarah.
guys so much.
Thank
Seriously.
you for bringing us together and doing this. This is amazing to have this platform to share. And so thank you all for being such wonderful sharers and vulnerable and open. It's amazing to get to be a part of this panel with you all.
Amen, baby.